Okay, second question. What should I do when my husband tells me to shut up? Every time I want to say something, he just shushes me. I feel lost. How should I speak to him about my concerns, my happiness, or just tell him that I love him?
Hmm. I really wish I could further understand what is happening. What are the things that she begins talking about when he shuts her down? Is it typically when she's bringing up how she feels about the relationship or things that she wants to change? Or is it just in everyday conversation? Now, I'm going to assume here, because she said, how should I speak to him about my concerns, my happiness, or just to tell him that I love him, that it may be more often than not that he's saying this. And she really doesn't feel like she has a way to talk to her husband. Of course, what we know from the research is the best way to approach someone, especially your spouse, is to start with how you feel. So not, I feel like you're a big jerk that never listens, but hey, like when I come to you, I feel like I don't matter to you. And that hurts me because, and I would even try and take that because to a much deeper level. So that hurts me because maybe when for you it was when you were a kid, that is the way that your dad was to you, right? Or maybe there was just something that happened in your past where this really is a trigger for you. Although it could just be a trigger for you because this is your husband and you feel like you cannot be intimate and open and honest with him because the space isn't there. But whatever it is, the basic formula is to start with when this happens, and not when you shush me, but when I try and speak with you. And you want to try and take as many you statements out of it. Sometimes it isn't 100% possible to do that because you may have to put in a you for the sentence to make sense. But you get what I'm trying to say. Start with those I statements. When this happens, this is how I feel, and this is why I feel that way, without trying to do it in a way that he is going to feel guilty, attacked, or maybe get defensive. Now, he may get all of those things anyway, and he may just simply not listen. He may simply try and shut you down, which is the irony of trying to have this conversation with someone who is telling you to be quiet. But ultimately, you have a right to speak about these concerns with your husband. That would be my recommendation of the first place to start. If that conversation doesn't go well, don't try and keep pressing on. If you start the conversation and say, when this happens, and by the way, I would also try and have this conversation at a good time. So not at the end of a long day after you just had a fight or after he just did it in the middle of a fight or something like that. I would wait until a time where both of you are in a decent mood, where there's no screaming kids in the background, where you didn't just have to pay a huge tax bill. You really want to make sure that the environment is most conducive to him being open and willing to listen. So from that point, if that still doesn't work and he still shuts you down, doesn't want to talk about it, then try and approach it from a little bit of a different way. Start talking to him by asking him questions. How was your day today? What do you have planned for the weekend? What are some of the things you enjoy doing? What are the favorite shows you're watching right now? Just start by being curious about him and start to try and get him to open up to you that way. Now, this is good for creating that friendship again, for creating intimacy, but it actually is working on a deeper level because you're reestablishing a positive communication pattern. So avoid the things where if you've noticed a pattern in the past, that when you bring this up or that up, that's when he typically begins to shut you down. Maybe it's because you're asking him to do something, or you're talking about finances or whatever. You're talking about how you're not happy in the relationship. If you've realized those are the things that he shuts you down on for a period of time, don't talk about those things. It's not because those things aren't valid and that your needs don't matter. They do, but we're going to try a different angle, the angle of approaching him with curiosity and being proactive on your part of trying to rebuild intimacy with him. And when I say intimacy, I mean friendship. So just ask him about the things that you would ask a friend about. Get him to open up to you that way. As he talks to you, be a safe and listening ear. And then once you have a decent pattern of being able to talk about those things, then consider revisiting, dipping your toe back in the water of, hey, hopefully by that time, maybe some of the shushing you has gone away some. But if it happens again, or you start noticing it again, then bring it back up. Hey, when this happens, this is how I feel. The other thing that is a real key here is being sure that you ask for the positive behavior that you're wanting. So don't just say, stop doing that. In fact, it's better to just not say that at all. It's better to say, instead, when I come to you, even if it's something that you're not in a place to be able to listen to or talk about in the moment, please simply say, hey, I hear you. Let's table this till the weekend or something like that. Like, tell him, explain to him the positive thing you're wanting him to do. Or maybe it's instead, maybe it's saying, hey, I need for us to just have 10 to 15 minutes every evening just talking about our day, where I can just open up and talk to you about and let go of all of the frustrations I had in my day. And I simply would love for you to listen, and then, we can do the same for you. But figure out, what is the thing you're wanting him to do? Yes, you want him to stop telling you to be quiet. Absolutely. But let's paint the picture of what the positive of that looks like as well. That would be my answer, Phil.
Absolutely. For me, when I read this, I think it's not just about the speaking portion of it. I think this actually goes back to what kind of you answered in the first question, is also, what can you do to start pulling? So what are the non-speaking things that you are doing? You say you want to tell him you love him. Write down those reasons for yourself so you know them. But how can you also show? A lot of people, some people, at least for me, my wife and I communicate very differently on days. We are very similar in how we communicate, so therefore we clash. But there are other things that are nonverbal that could be cues as well. So yeah. I would recommend, that's just me. I'm not the teacher. I am the listener and facilitator here. But when I read this question, I think exactly what you said, what the framework you just gave is exactly how I was taught when my wife and I got married, is never start with you, start with the I. But in that same vein, what could you be doing daily to work on yourself, to become the best version of yourself, and working on those pies so that he will want to talk to you?
Yeah. It's one of those things. I love listener questions. I also love when we can further understand a little bit more about where the questions are coming from, because you're exactly right. There's 100 different situations. Actually, there's probably more like 5. There's probably 5 situations that this woman could be really referring to if we were to dig a bit deeper. And I am going to read this question and think of it in my experience and in my past and in my bias towards the way I've learned. Whereas you may hear that question and think that she's talking about it from a little bit of a different perspective. And both of them are right. So and it is true. Like, there's way more underneath this question than just the communication skills and how you're talking to each other. That's one really practical part of it. Like, hey, if we're just going to talk about the what's floating up at the top of the water and not get too deep yet, then let's just start here. But if I was talking to this woman, I would ask, like, tell me more about your relationship. When did the unhappiness start on his end or on your end? Because there is a break in their relationship. It's either a break in their intimacy or their passion or their commitment, but there is something that her husband is being pushed away. And we don't know why. But we do know, like what you just said, what we teach at Marriage Helper is you can begin to pull your spouse back by doing certain things, the things that we teach. And that is part of it. Like, that's kind of the part of it that you do. Think of it like an exercise plan or a nutrition plan. If you're wanting to be healthy, then there's things that you just do because they're the right things to do. But then there may be, you eat right and you work out. But then there may be some things that if you're saying, I know I need to work out and eat healthy, but I also like immediately realize that my blood glucose, my blood sugar levels are too high. And so immediately on top of that, here are some of the interventions I can take for that specific part. And that's the way that I view this. There's an underlying mechanism that is the foundation of this that absolutely needs to be fixed. But then there's also like a quick win, hopefully, but a very specific problem that we can focus on creating an intervention for while the foundation is being built under here as well. That is my performance psychology background coming out right there. I just heard it
this
so
is wonderful.
much.
If you don't know, Kimberly is actually currently working on her PhD in psychology. And what a lot of people actually don't know, even Jason included, my wife, your husband know this, but this is stuff we talk about on the daily.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to it already, Kimberly also hosts the podcast, It Starts With Attraction, where she goes more deeper into becoming the most attractive version of yourself. I would say Kimberly loves getting into the details and nitty gritty of the science. So if you ever want to hear about the science of how to actually physically get better, both physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually, the pies of attraction, please visit It Starts With Attraction. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you'd like to learn more about upcoming dates of our workshop or just about the workshop in general, please click right here. If you'd like to take a free course and start learning about the 3 things you can do to start bringing your spouse back, click right here. As always, please consider subscribing, liking this video, and turning on notifications so you can learn and be notified when new videos like this one come out. We'll see you in the next video.